And we got one more for this batch of reactions. I left the bass over there, so I'm going to have to do that while the intro plays. But this is another request. This one's actually apparently quite old. The name of the band is We Were Gentlemen. The name of the song is Cradle Your Filth. Apparently, this came out in 2009. So we're in for something interesting, that's for sure. The viewer who requested this said he found this band while looking for Cradle of Filth. So I had a very different expectation when I went looking for this, and then I saw the thumbnail for the video and read the first two lines of the description that it gives you when you look for things in the YouTube search, and that is not what I was expecting. So we'll get into this a little bit right after we get into this. Huh, it almost got away from me there. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this wiki. Yeah, no, nothing. Okay. So we're gonna have to put some pieces together for this, because these guys don't even have a Wikipedia page. So yeah, that's very interesting. So yeah, we already have kind of gone through my relationship with this band. I have never heard of these guys before, so I'm gonna transition to this so you can read along with me, I guess. We got taking it back to the MySpace days. This is a different video. This is not the one we're going to be watching. This is somebody else uploading it. Taking it back to the MySpace days, the vocalist from Winter Solstice, an amazing metalcore band, went from his new band, and then that's all we got there. And I'm not going to click the link. And then again, 2009 is when this song was originally released. They're on Century Media, which is the same record label that Shadows Fall was on back then. So entirely possible that it's going to be okay. I don't know, man. I'm getting some real hardcore metalcore flashbacks judging by these two thumbnails right here. So it'll be very interesting to see what they bring to the table. We're just going to jump right into... Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, disclaimer. This is... We're just going to read the dang thing. Before we get any further into this video, let's get a couple of things out of the way. First, if you want to listen to this song or watch this video in whole without my commentary, then go do that. This is a reaction and analysis video. We are here for a conversation, not for a watch party. Second, my analysis is my opinion. My opinion does come from a place of knowledge. I have over 30 years of musical training and experience, 20 years as a professional musician and producer, and also 10 years as a video producer and director. So I know what I'm talking about. I've done this once or twice. And then, all that being said, we will be discussing the performance of the song by the musicians, the production of the song by the producer, and the production of the video by the director. We're going to be stopping and talking over things. We're going to be replaying sections and so on and so forth, discussing the things I think are working and the things I think are not working, and therefore what I very likely would have done differently if I was in the director's chair or the producer's seat. So, all that being said, I now return you to your regularly scheduled reaction video. Okay. Let's just jump right into this, because I have no expectations. I take that back. I do have some expectations. I expect this, and no offense to the guy that suggested this, or whoever it was that suggested this. No offense intended, but I do expect this to be really middle of the road metalcore. I highly doubt I'm going to have much appreciation for the vocalist. And the riffs, I bet the riffs are going to be really interesting and heavy, and I'm going to appreciate them. I don't feel like I'm going to be impressed by this song in many ways, if any. So, that being said, those are our expectations, which are set pretty low, admittedly. I really hope I am surprised by this, but I don't expect that. So, let's get into it. Okay. So, we have a couple of staples of early metalcore here. First off, we have the golden oldies kind of sounding intro where you kind of take all of the bottom end and just really make it super tinny, like it's coming out of an old radio for the intro, which is, again, very common and kind of was a trope at the time. The vocalist sounds like he's pooping himself and doesn't sound like he's using very much proper technique at all. And the riff is just one long breakdown. Are we keeping track so far, children? Man, I hope it gets better than this. And the drummer has a mullet in 2009. All right, I can get into that. That's a little groovy. There's nothing about this that stands out. There is, I guess, production-wise, we do have a pretty solid drum sound. Like, overall, I don't know that there's anything I really would have changed with this. Maybe microphone placement on the snare. We're getting a little bit too much of that ring. That could have also been fixed in post after the fact with a little bit of a noise gate so that you kind of catch the ring on its way down. You give it a good roll-off, and it sounds really natural. So we're getting a little pow from the snare, which is not usually something you're looking for. Snare is a punctuation mark, not necessarily a filler. But otherwise, I really feel like the drum tone is really working. The guitar tone, let's talk about that guitar tone for a second. The guitar tone is really thin. Usually in your metalcore, you want a whole lot of mid and then a good beefy bottom end, and then you kind of leave the top end fairly flat or even negatives as far as the EQ goes. And then towards the even further side of the top, you want to bring that up so that you get a lot of the color from the distortion. Or at the very least, you can scoop it, which I don't even think this was scooped. So a scoop EQ is really popular, was super popular in 80s metal, and even into the 90s. I feel like even like some of the grunge bands were guilty of scooping. I'm not a big fan of the scoop on a guitar. I'll scoop the hell out of a bass, but not so much on the guitar just because you lose all of the color, because all of the color comes from your midtones. So a scoop, if you imagine you have, where am I? There we go. So if you imagine you have your low end here, and your high end here, right? So across this is your spectrum of frequencies. So this is like 50 hertz, and this is like 16 kilohertz. So you have all of the frequencies there in between. A scoop brings these sides up and then kind of brings this center down. So you're taking away the mids. And a lot of the character, like if you listen to Lamb of God's guitars, Mark and Willie both have not a very scooped sound because they have a whole lot of color to the sound. It is really the best way I can put that. Scoop gives you a lot of aggression without any it's really hard to describe this in any more of a simple way than color. The scoop will make it more aggressive. If you start playing around in the mids and you get a good mid tone, then you're going to have a lot more character to your guitar. I don't think they even did that. I think this is kind of a half-ass scoop. I feel like they put the bottom peak. So where the bottom's here, right? So they put the bottom peak somewhere towards the mid, and then they scooped from the mids to the highs instead of from the lows to the highs. So there is a little bit of character here, but there's no bottom to play with. It's all really tinny garbage over here at the top. So that is something I definitely would have done differently in the studio. And then the other thing, we're talking bass now. The bass in this is guilty of most bass players. This is actually twofold guilt. So the bass player is only playing the bottom end of the chord, so there's no bass movement. The bass is just there to, I don't know, kind of fill out the bottom end, but even then I don't feel like there's enough bottom end in the bass. And how do you get that wrong? So we're playing root notes, which is cardinal sin in my book, and the producer doesn't know how to EQ the bass properly, so it's getting folded into the mud in the middle as well. So that's kind of how that mix is sitting in my ear balls. Yeah, we're gonna keep going. If it wasn't for that kick, I feel like there would really be no bottom end on this recording at all. Okay, vocalist. What I afraid to live falls to the floor. See, that right there is more dynamic than whatever the hell he was doing right there. I would try and plunk it out on the notes, but again, my ear is still in training. I've been working with writing my own music and or working off of sheet music for so long that my ear hasn't really had time to develop. So eventually we'll be able to analyze a song like this, and I'll be able to play the vocal line that he's singing, and then I'll be able to sing a better one. Right now, that's not the case. I apologize. So, let's go back over that section real quick, just so I can get it back in my memory, because I just went off on a little tangent. Afraid. Something, get more dynamic with your vocal, man. Like, I understand he might not be a very great vocalist, but if you can find then you can go up a third. You can find that third up there. You can go up inside of the chord and make this a more dynamic vocal performance. I feel like he's afraid of his voice. There's a lot of potential in that melody line that he's really, because he's all right here and I just want to sing one note. It could be potentially could be done well even that way, but I don't know, his vowel sounds are odd falling out of his mouth, and it's just there's a lot left to be desired with this vocal performance. And now we have the official breakdown of the song. Okay, I think I might have pinpointed my issue with that harsh vocal. So what we have going here is we have two different vocal takes being blended into one sound, which is a common practice and actually is something that a lot of producers, myself included, should probably do. I do this with aggressive vocals fairly regularly, but there is a massive difference between what we're hearing here and what I would have done if I were in the booth. Again, if I were the producer, not saying this is the best way to do it, just saying this is the way I would do it. So if you listen, you can hear two different screams. You have presumably both from the vocalist. One of them is more of a guttural, proper sounding scream, and one of them is more of a throat kind of shredding sounding scream. Very possibly, like it sounded to me at the beginning like he had really bad technique, and it's not necessarily the case. It probably was just an issue with the alignment of the tracks and the way he did his takes. One of the vocals was cutting in before the other one was, so it made it sound like there was something weird going on in his throat. Now I'm thinking it might be less that and more the producer's fault for mixing this poorly. You take whichever vocal is the one that your vocalist sounds like the most live. That is your primary vocal. Having never heard these guys live, I can't say if the guttural or the throat shred is the primary vocal. I don't know which one he sounds like live. So that being the case, we're just going to speak theoretically here. So you take the one that they sound the most like live. You take that one, you make that your primary vocal. That sits on top. Then for the more aggro vocals, then you take that other scream vocal and you pull that down out of the mix so that it's filling up the sound, but you're not focusing on it. It doesn't detract from the primary vocal. So that is how you do two aggressive vocals. Generally, though, you don't really do that unless there's some sort of production trickery going on, like you're going to hard pan, you have one vocal in one ear and the other vocal in the other ear. That's a common trick as well, but that's usually for effect. That's not for a song. Usually when you do a split vocal like this, you have the primary vocal, which again is going to be that main scream. And then maybe you'll have something to off-put that, so the secondary scream, usually done by somebody else in the band so they can do it live as well. And then you might do another layer, or the second layer would be this, which is a spoken vocal that sits very, very low in the mix so that it just kind of gives it a different kind of atmosphere. None of these things are happening. What we have here is two vocals that are sitting almost exactly the same in the mix as far as their levels go, and that just really is distracting, and it does a disservice not only to the recording but to the vocalist, because then it sounds like the vocalist doesn't know what he's doing. See, it sounds off time. Oh, are we going to go even more breakdown? That kick drum, honestly, the kick drum is really making this song for me. Like, that's kind of a perfect kick tone. There could be more balls to it, but still, in this mix, that's the best thing. I really like that snare sound too. Ooh, great on the floor tom, too. Just the right amount of resonance. Still a little bit of an issue with the snare as far as the resonance goes, but still pretty good. Okay, so we're going back real quick to listen to that snare roll, because you can hear the resonance. You can hear the issue I'm having with the resonance in that snare roll. So you can you hear each individual impact with the stick to the head, and then between impacts you can hear the resonance falling off, and that means that likely the microphone was set up incorrectly or the snare was tuned incorrectly. But either way, it's not. That is the issue with the snare. The initial impact tone, that is great. I just feel like there's something that could have been done better with that roll-off. Pum, 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 pum. Pum. But listen to the kick, though. And the floor tom. Boom, 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 boom. See, toms are where you want resonance. Toms, you want resonating tone for sure. And that floor tom has great resonating tone. Boom. So yeah, there you go. We were gentlemen. Cradle your filth. See, so all right. So as critical as I've been of this song this whole time, I don't mind mediocre metalcore. Like I really like the genre of metalcore. So even the mediocre stuff I can still dig. I, though, can still recognize that it's mediocre, and I can put into vocabulary why it is mediocre. So this had mediocre written all over it. The drums are definitely the shining part of this, because aside from that little issue with the snare, I really feel like they nailed that drum tone. Again, the snare didn't sound bad. There was just way too much resonance from that head. So I've gone over how we could have fixed that a couple of times at this point. I'm not going to do it again. Yeah, I dug it. I dug it in a way that I can still recognize it for what it is, and that is a mediocre metalcore tune. We're going to transition out of there. We're going to talk to the camera just for a minute. I really appreciate when you guys make suggestions in the comments section. I have a couple more to do. I'm not going to be doing those tonight, which, I mean, if you've watched the last few reaction videos, I've been wearing the same shirt, which means I recorded them all on the same day. So, I'm not going to be doing the other couple of viewer suggestions, but I will get to those in the next batch of reaction videos. Thank you guys for suggesting things. Let's talk about why you think I'm wrong about this video or this song. Why? I mean, the video, we didn't even talk about video production stuff, because you have to have a great song before I'm going to worry about your video. Unless it's such a crazy video, and this was really just shock for shock's sake. There was nothing original about this video, so there's nothing really to worry about talking about it. I really have. I'm having mid 2000s flashbacks right now, because like there was a lot of this kind of garbage. On the MySpace is kind of an appropriate way of putting it. So whoever that was that had that other video up, that said going back to the MySpace days, that's exactly what this is. It wasn't the crabcore stuff that we got from MySpace. That was not present here, but it definitely was the predecessor to crabcore, probably. I don't know. I feel like I want you guys to suggest these kind of videos, the videos that are middle of the road in their genre, so that we can take apart why mediocrity is worse than being bad, because mediocre means there's not. If you can give them enough compliments that they're going to continue doing what they're doing, and they are not going to listen to the negative sides. Whereas if it was bad, you wouldn't have anything good to say about it necessarily. So we'll get into that in future videos, I'm sure. Thank you, nerds, very much for joining me. That's where I'm going to end this one. Don't forget that generallynerdy.net is the website. Patreon.com/generallynerdy is the place to go support more directly. While you are on the channel, though, don't forget that you can click or tap one of those two squares right there below my face. You can click, here for other reactions, or here for the full everything playlist. So I put all of my videos in that playlist. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Click the thumbs up. Let me know you like what I'm doing. There's a thumbs down there, too. People have found that pretty readily on some of the other videos because they don't like what I have to say about their genre of music. You poor bastards. Thank you guys again for listening and joining me on this. Before we head out, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.